I had a wonderful career in the Australian Army, something I'm very proud of, 37 years. It was something I enjoyed almost every day. There were some days, of course, that you didn't enjoy, but retirement came for me in the middle of 2008 at the end of a real privilege in that I was Chief of Army for 6 years, and before that I'd been Deputy Chief of Army. So I was able to see the Army change from when I joined it in 1971, when we were very much at home. We're just coming back from Vietnam, and the thought was, well, we're not going to go overseas again. There was a rejection of the expeditionary operations. So I spent most of my Army career in an Army at peace. And it wasn't until what I call the baby steps, sort of Rwanda, Cambodia, Somalia, and a few of those things, some UN deployments, that we realised that the world was changing. Some of the authors at the time were talking about the coming anarchy and the troubled and fractured planet. And then we went off to Timor. It was a surprise. It was also a wake-up call in that we really weren't ready for it. And if you think about it, it was about the easiest thing we could have done. It was next door to Australia. The Indonesians, after some sort of issues, they were supportive and they helped us, and I think together we've achieved something. But that was that wake-up call that we need to think, well, what will the Army be doing in the future? It's not going to be staying at home dealing with the thugs in thongs, the leakers who would get through the sea-air gap with the Navy and the Air Force would act against them, and the Army would deal only on the continent of Australia. We realised that we had to be able to work overseas. And so quickly following from East Timor, what we saw was 9/11. And so that was a real wake-up call. Now, not just going across the road to Timor, this was around the other side of the world, a different climate, different cultures, things that we weren't used to. And so by then I was Deputy Chief of Army. Then what we saw was that Iraq happened, and we certainly weren't ready for that. And so over that period, the lessons that I'd taken from my career in the Army at peace, and what I thought was necessary to deal with this new conflict types that were out there, but to deal with a geopolitical situation where we were global in reach and were expected to operate on a global stage, we came across an army, what we called then the hardened and networked army. And this was to make sure that the army, if it deployed, could perform its tasks, but importantly, do it without too much risk. We'd become very small, we'd become light, and so over that time when I was in the army, I saw the army increase in size. The budget expanded enormously, and I have to thank particularly John Howard as Prime Minister for what he did there. He was concerned that soldiers should not deploy without the right equipment, without the ability to do their job, to do it well, but also to be protected and come back alive. So well done to John Howard as the Prime Minister. He was excellent. I think towards the end of my career, I also got a sense that the nature of conflict had changed as well, in that it wasn't just the military on operations, it was the whole of government on operations. So you needed foreign affairs and trade, you needed industry, you needed a whole range of things all operating, because it wasn't just fighting an army now, this was building a community, what we call clear, hold and build, or secure, stabilise and develop. And so the army found itself doing all of those things. So when I left the army in July of 2008, I think I had in my head that we needed to talk much more about whole of government. How do we get foreign affairs and trade? How do we get these other government agencies? Then it was thinking about internationally, but the change that I've seen since 2008, we need a whole of government approach for the domestic threats that exist. I was also keen, of course, on the geopolitics, keen on making sure that the army had a proper role, that it was recognised, it was resourced properly, and was given the policy. So I had the terrific opportunity, and again the privilege, of being able to come here to the University of Canberra and become the director at the National Security Institute. I was also thrilled that the Vice-Chancellor at the time, Stephen Parker, saw fit to offer me a professorship, which I'm very proud of, but also very conscious that what I can do here is help the undergraduates, help the students in Canberra get a sense of, well, we can have a role in this national security community as well. So around about the same time we saw Kevin Rudd's national security statement, and that gave a real sense of, well, it's not just the military, it's all these other agencies, and what just in the last few months what we've seen is the Home Affairs Department. And I regularly get calls from the students who've graduated from here, who've done the national security major, and they're working in these departments, in the Federal Police, and Foreign Affairs and Trade, and working at the Attorney General's, working in Border Protection, Customs and so on. So that I really enjoy that. I hope to continue this for a while, just considering what is Australia's place in the world. And along the way, I've collected a few charities, and also I've been asked to come onto the board of a few stock exchange listed companies. The charities I also enjoy. I think once you're in the army, once you're in the Defence Force, you never really leave. And if I can help those who are either in, but particularly now, those who've left, and some of them who are troubled. So I work with Soldier On, a great organisation, very capably, ably led by John Bale. I'm also involved this year with the delivery of the Invictus Games, and that's wonderful to see what we can do for those who are physically damaged but also psychologically damaged, what we can do for them and demonstrate the healing power of sport. Also on the Prince's Trust Australia, and we've got a particularly good program going there where Lead Your Own Business. So we invite people who are either just about to leave the Defence Force or who have just left to come down with RMIT in Victoria and do a program of learning how to run a business, and that's been really beneficial. So some people ask me, have you retired? And I think the answer is probably no. There's still a fair bit going on, but in many ways it's part of what I did in the military, being around soldiers, and the work I do on the company level or the industry level tends to be around technology, and because I always found the thought of how do you get the military out there, how do you get the technology, and how do you innovate, and you've got to think a long way ahead. So companies that are involved in remote weapons, companies that are involved in space surveillance, which is just fascinating, also companies that are involved in the delivery of communications equipment, mine detectors, gold detectors and so on. There's the commercial side of it, but there's also what can we do for communities. So I'd have to say, Serge, I'm having a pretty good time. Of course I miss the army, but I found something else to do, and I think a message that I would give to a lot of people is that there is life after the army. It's something that you should embrace, because we all leave. And we should be proud of what we've done, but also look to the future with a lot of confidence.